Dynamo Fan TV here. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Houston Dynamo Assistant General Manager Nick Kowba. Nick, thank you for the time and the opportunity.
Thank you for having me. I'm just happy to be here. Happy that you guys continue to cover the second team and all the good work that's being done.
Yeah, and you mentioned the good work, and it has showed. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you more if you can let the people know more of your role within the club.
Sure. Yeah. My title's Assistant General Manager. I've been here for a long time and had a variety of different roles. Worked with some really talented players, talented people, and throughout that time have worked my way up into the role I'm in now. And part of that role, which I feel fortunate to be doing, is overseeing the second team and the player pathway, from the academy all the way up to the first team. It's an interesting space. It's an evolving space, and every day is different. So it definitely keeps me on my toes, and I like to be a part of player development right now and seeing these young players grow. And I think there's a lot of talent coming up, and we're right on the precipice of seeing some really cool things happening in the academy and second team and the organization overall.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, right? We can go depth with a lot of guys, right? Players and staff as well that has came up as long as you have. Today, the first question that I want to ask you, a new player that has been signed is Andy Patioba, right? He's coming in from Colombia. Can you explain to us more how that happened, how you guys were able to complete it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're really excited to have him join the club. I mean, it was a choice he had many options. He's a talent. He's one of the young, most talented players at his age coming out of Colombia. So, had he been, right now he's a player for Atlético Nacional, who's a big club in the country. Had he not been at that club, it may not be an opportunity because he'd be playing for a first team there. So he's a kid that we see him a lot like Nelson Quinones before Nelson played first team football. So he chose to come here. He sees Houston. I think you're seeing more often Houston's a destination for these young players in Central and South America. They see what we've done with Mikel, who came in, played for a year with the second team, and then displaced a designated player and hasn't looked back. I mean, he's arguably got to be one of the most impactful players to come out of Next Pro. Not a lot of people talk about that or connect the dots, but I think you see young players that are learning about the Next Pro, learning about MLS, seeing that pathway, and I think Andy's seen that. I think you also have success stories in Brooklyn Reigns, who's just at the U20s, named Best 11. You have Xavier Valdez at the Olympics, and many more that are coming through. So for Andy, we're really excited to get him in the door. Unfortunately, he won't be here as soon as we had hoped because he's in with the U20s in Colombia, which again is it's a testament to his talent. And I think overall, when you look at that U20 team in Colombia, there's a handful of players that we had our eye on in the off season to try and bring in here. So I think we're on the right track from a scouting standpoint. And just to backtrack a little bit, in the off season, we had a few priorities. One was to get younger and provide opportunities for academy players and not block them. And so that was one, and I think we've shown that when you look at the makeup of the team the other night, and just in general, that team is we lead the league in academy age players in minutes played, which is it's a pretty good thing to hang our hat on. We also, out of 17 out of the 22 games we've played a younger roster than the opponent. So I think all those things combined, a kid like Andy sees that there's a path, sees opportunity to come and play. And again, we're just really excited to get him in the door. Obviously, whether he makes an impact right away or how many games we have left, that would be determined by, team results and playoffs. But we have him on loan through the next summer. So we've got some time to work with him, which we're really, really looking forward to.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, right? The youth. We've seen 2008s, 2009s, and Kenny is always amazed. We've also talked to the players like Femi, and then also recently, Exonatsu, his first team contract. He obtains his first team contract despite being injured, but he showed that he is capable of doing those things. So he also was brought in with a loan, and now the purchase has been exercised. So how do you feel with him, and also the 2008 and 2009 that we have seen?
Yeah, so I mean, Exxon, he's a kid that we tracked for a while. Obviously, there's no secret we have a good connection to Honduras, and lots of success stories coming out of Honduras with former players. Boniat Garcia, who's still with the club in a coaching capacity. Albert Elise from El Kyoto. I mean, these profiles are similar to Exxon Arzu, and so obviously Exxon jumped on the opportunity in working with his club to give him the platform to come here. He trusted us, and he's well deserving. Unfortunately, he had a foot injury that was a setback, but he was in the Honduran senior team pool of players prior to that injury. So we're hoping that he bounces back and you see him with the senior team, really soon. Again, that's just credit to the scouting that we're doing and the contacts that we've established, and Houston being a destination. Whether it's what the club can offer, but it's the fans, it's the diversity of the city, it's the infrastructure we have, and the support from ownership.
And then, like Exxon, earlier in the year, Kenny Bundy told us that Exonatsu and Femi Owodesu are two players that they are looking forward to try to push for the first team. And I want you to talk to us more about that signing, right? Undrafted, but now today he captained Dynamo last game, and he's played consistent minutes. So how was that signing?
Yeah, I mean, we were shocked that Femi went undrafted. Obviously, you're limited with the amount of picks you have, and draft day is always, a crapshoot of who sees what and what teams' needs are, and who's available when you're on the clock. And we had Femi on our list, and as we're crossing guys off as they kept going. Drafted, we were shocked, and so he was the first call we made as soon as the draft ended. We called, we said, we want you in, come to us, we believe in you, it'll be a trial basis, but let's see what you have. We've been watching you. He's had success individually, he's had success at Penn State, and you and from a character standpoint, we interviewed him, we did our background on him. I mean, a wonderful person, a leader. We're constantly pushing him now daily to lead that young group. And I think you see, he's surrounded. You have Isaac, who's 16, playing on the right. Jefferson Medina playing left center back next to him, who's just turned 18. So we'll probably have the youngest back line in Next Pro, and to do that, you need leaders like Femi, who's either putting out fires or organizing people in front of him, and it's a credit to him. And look, he's putting himself in consideration for the first team. He was invited to Mexico for the preseason, like a lot of these guys. So he's a player that the first team staff are excited about, but obviously still needs to put in the work and prove that he's at that level consistently.
And then another draft pick, Usman Silla, just scored a hat trick. And he's one of the team's top goal scorers, and how he was rated highly, but the doubt of him going to Europe, how were you guys able to know that he had offers, but convince him to stay here?
Yeah, I mean, nobody or everybody knew who Usman Silla was on draft day. I mean, best player in college soccer, and one of the most talented players in the final third, I think, and also one of the most exciting to watch. I think the stuff that he's doing is impressive, and it's worth the price of admission every time. He's just one where, again, through our contacts and checking, with his agent and talking player. He's another guy who had a choice, right? Like he didn't necessarily, even though we drafted him, he didn't have to come here. He could have, there's been players before him that have gone to Europe and had successful careers, and you don't see him, and he's that talented. I'm just happy now. You're seeing some of the stuff that he's doing on the field in the final third, and it's resulting in goals. Because a lot of times he does some spectacular stuff, and but the final product is lacking at times. And I think he scores 3 goals the other night, and you're like, okay, finally, there we go. And you expect him to be there. You expect him to do that. And if he wants to be, involved in the first team, that's what we expect from him, and that's what he's going to have to bring day in and day out, week in and week out on the weekend.
And then we've talked now about players individually, but as a team, Kenny told us a couple of weeks back against North Texas that he believes that this is the best Dynamo 2 roster that he has had. And on this past game, he has shown, he told us that this is what he expects out of the club. So how do you feel about that, him stating that it's the best team and knowing that the team can put out performances like they did?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting blend, like we talked about, from the internationals that have come in to the academy players that are coming up to some of the drafted players or players that returned. It's an interesting blend, and I think, for us, although we're on the outside looking in from a playoff standpoint, there's not a game that we've played that we haven't been in the game. We haven't been competitive. I think there's a lot of times where, we've outplayed teams, and a mistake here or, the other team making a play and us not has resulted in some tough results. But we have all the confidence in the team to go on a run. And again, there's not a team that we face where we haven't sat there and said, we aren't a more talented team, or we don't have the pieces, or it's about fine-tuning some of the details and players making plays or avoiding making mistakes. And so for us, it's an important stretch with 6 games left, but we have all the confidence in this group, and we just hope that there's more performances like Asilla. Hope to get some good performances from the leaders of the team, but also these young guys that are coming through that you're seeing, like a Jamani Bell the other night. These guys, the young players, they're proving they're good enough, and they're gaining confidence, which is, it's going to be dangerous for other teams when they're looking at us on the weekend.
Okay. And then you mentioned it, and then lastly, I want to ask you about mirroring the first team, right? The team, it took them a while to obtain their first point as the team was mirroring the first team, but now you guys have got into a groove, and if we go by form, you guys have picked up the form. So do you think that it was difficult to mirror the first team, or how was it that you guys were able to do that task and improve and embrace it?
Yeah, again, I think the first team I think both teams have been similar in the sense of playing really well and getting punished at certain times for mistakes or, not being killers in the final third, not getting the goal that you deserve, and then letting teams hang around and then, punish you. That's from a result standpoint. Obviously from, formation, a style of play, right now we try and play a similar formation. We don't have a Hector Herrera or a Coca Carrasquilla or a Mean Bossy, but, we try and from a formation standpoint, we try and mirror the first team. We try and have the same types of, we want to prepare these guys with the second team to go into the first team, and they're being asked the same things. It's a higher level, it's a higher speed, it's more demanding, but they shouldn't have different demands on them. They should kind of understand their role. They should understand the movement, the relationships and the partnerships, the movements, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's not easy. It's not easy. And sometimes results, don't go your way because you are trying to be, set in that approach.
Okay. So thank you so much, Nick, for the time. best of luck, and thank you so much
Thank
once
you for
again.
having me. I appreciate it, and thank you for your support and coverage of the team. We'll keep it going.
Thank you.